The NCAA is going to change two rules. And, well, one is actually a new rule, kind of. It's dealing with the transfer portal. And the other one is targeting. And both of these rules are interesting. Uh, Now, the transfer portal penalties, good Lord, they're getting violent up in there. They really are. And the targeting, I find it interesting. I think that it's only going to be dealing with Division One, FBS and FCS. I think targeting should be called a little bit more often than it is, but I also think that it needs to be done more fairly. But then again, though, I watch more SEC games and AAC games, and the AAC, you don't see it near as much as what you do in the SEC. Why? Because the SEC refs don't call. There are certain teams that get away with whatever they want in the SEC. The AAC, you can go after Navy, and they're just going to keep pounding you into the ground without breaking the rules. So we're going to cover both of these rules. Why? Because, hey, it's college football. This is going to change some things if they're actually, paid attention to. That's part of the problem, at least in the SEC. They don't pay attention to these things. They really don't. Uh, they go out of their way to, what's the right way to do it? They want to protect certain teams because that's their money. As long as those teams are doing good, then everybody else is getting paid attention to in their eyes. Never mind the fact that if you watch these games, there are certain teams that would do a lot better. I mean, you take a look at, I'm sure that Kirby Smart did not did not like it, but a Georgia player took Lacey off of Ole Miss, almost took his head off with a blatant face mask. Grabbed the face mask, almost tore off Lacey's head. No call. I mean, the calls, period, were just idiotic. So that's what I had a problem with. The, and I can imagine that Kirby Smart's not exactly the type of person to get along with his players doing that kind of stuff, but they get away with it. Why? Because, well, they're Georgia. And then you take a look at some of the calls when you're watching or non-calls when you're watching an Alabama game. It's not that I don't like Alabama. Nick Saban, as long as it's not the third Saturday in October, I don't have a problem with that watching Alabama. But they do get away with stuff that they shouldn't get away with. But we're going to get into these rules. We're going to see how this will change everything. So let's get into it. Before we get into the crux of this video, hit like, hit subscribe if you like college sports, because I do college sports, primarily college football, college women's gymnastics, do a little basketball, and other sports on occasion, but that's what I do, college. Also, General Robert Neyland, former University of Tennessee head football coach for decades, had 7 maxims to win any game, but they can also help you if you apply them correctly to your life. The second one is play for and make the breaks. When one comes your way, score. That is a maxim that can be also applied to your life. Look for those breaks and take it. Now, the first one we're going to cover is the transfer portal. NCAA Division I cabinet on Friday endorsed in a concept a proposal from the Division I Football Bowl Subdivision Oversight Committee that would prescribe significant penalties for programs found to have circumvented the sport's notification of transfer window. The cabinet also endorsed the application of the concept to all sports. If the proposal is ultimately adopted in its current form by the cabinet, expected to take place no later than April, significant penalties would be imposed on programs if the student athlete transfer without, from another NCAA school without first being entered into the transfer portal and then participates in athletically related activities at the next school. Head coach would be prohibited from all coaching, recruiting, and administrative duties, team meetings for 6-month contest. So half the football season. School would be fined 20% of its football budget. So if this is LSU, that'd be $4 million. Or no, pardon me, $8 million. Redneck math, you know. School would be required to reduce the number of roster spots by 5 for the next season, regardless of the head coach's employment status at the school. While the cabinet broadly supported the concept and intent of the proposal, it debated some of the specific measures. The cabinet expects to revisit the topic and address specific penalties for sports other than football prior to a vote on the proposal. Cabinet also signaled it would consider proposed rule changes effective date, if adopted, to be February 25th, 2026, which was the date the Oversight Committee formally introduced the proposal. Therefore, the penalties would apply to any sports program to which a student athlete transfers without entering the portal and then participates in athletically related activities at the new school on or after that date. Okay, now let's talk about targeting. For the 2026 season, Division I Football Rules Subcommittee proposed a one-year trial rule to modify the penalty structure when players called for targeting. Under the recommendation, a player disqualified for targeting for the first time during the season, regardless of which half it occurs, could play the next game. Any player disqualified for targeting a second time during the season would be required to miss the first half of the next game. If players disqualified a third targeting penalty during the season, the player would be required to miss the entire next game. Division I Football Bowl Subdivision and Division I Football Championship Subdivision Oversight Committee must approve all proposals before they become official. The FBS Oversight Committee is scheduled to review rule recommendations on March 19th and the FCS Oversight Committee on March 23rd. Under the proposal, a conference has the option to initiate an appeals process after a player's second targeting offense. The appeal, which can cover the first and second targeting offenses, would be sent to an NCAA national coordinator of football officials who would then facilitate a video review. If the call is overturned on appeal, the player would be able to play without sitting out the first half of the next game. Currently, players disqualified for targeting are disqualified for the remainder of that game. If the penalty occurs in the second half, the player must sit out the first half of the next game. Since 2022 season, conference offices have been allowed to appeal second half targeting disqualifications to the NCAA national coordinator of officials of having call overturned so the player would not miss the first half of the game. Okay, interesting. I've always had two major problems with the NCAA. One, they've been one of the greediest organizations in American history. I thought the government could be bad with greed. NCAA took it to an entirely different level. And then you have the problem of that even when they have rules, they rarely actually enforce them. Now, mind you, I agree with Jeremy Pruitt in some ways. Well, his legal defense anyway, even though I dislike Jeremy Pruitt, would never have wanted him to be the University of Tennessee head coach if I'd had a choice. But they don't have a valid system in place on how to deal with it when the NCAA decides to punish you, if they decide to punish you. I mean, the officials aren't part of the NCAA. Officials are part of their conference. So when you're hearing about these different conference or these different games and everything, oh, well, this bowl game was the officials were from this conference, and see, that's a problem. It should not be about what conference they're from. It should straight up be, hey, These are NCAA trained officials that are employees of the NCAA, and they are only beholden to the NCAA. They should not be beholden to the SEC or the Big Ten or the AAC. No, the the referees and umps and all those officials on the field should be beholden to the NCAA only. I think the targeting calls would be a whole lot different. I think SEC football would be a whole lot different. And for that matter, I want to see if they actually go through with the whole transfer portal issue. Now, I think the transfer portal is getting idiotic. I do. Uh, I can't wait to see what happens with Brendan Sorsby. I can't see what happens with the Duke situation. I mean, but if you take a look at it, you've got players that are so mercenary, they sign contracts and then they're gone the next year, even though they're under contract. I think that we need to get that into effect. If you sign a contract, you should honor that contract. But hey, this is the new NCAA and this is the new transfer portal and NIL. I have no problems with NIL. I think NIL should have been going on for a long time. I have a problem with pay for play because I love me some Navy football. But they continuously are going to be hurting, even though you saw them the past few years. They were an amazing team without having to pay NIL and all, deal with transfer portals and all this. Army the other year was one of the greats. This is They should show teams that you don't need to be paying all this money. Mercenary players continuously asking for all this money. I think colleges should just go, yep, nope. Have a high school kid asking for millions of dollars be told, nope, you can go do something else. Go pound sand. I have no problems with that. Transfer portal, you get how many folks have been sitting in the transfer portal forever and can't play college football anymore because nobody wants to pick them up because, well, you decided to be a mercenary and learn the hard way that nobody wants you because they don't want to pay the money and whatnot. That should have happened to Nico Iamaleava. But hey, UCLA fans seem to love him for some unknown reason, and you can continue to love him. This has been Paul with Redneck Sports. Y'all have a good day now. Bye. Hey, folks, before you leave, if you can't become a member via my YouTube channel, which that's for my thinker, I've also got sports. I've got a Patreon. If you really, really want to help me out, I would be much appreciated. But hey, hitting like, hit subscribe, hit commenting, all those things really help me out. Have a good day.